Some are drawn to light. I'm drawn to darkness, to the unknown, to the places where the veil between our world and the next is thin. Haunted places, they call to me. They whisper of forgotten tragedies, of restless spirits, of stories that need to be told. I've always been fascinated by the paranormal. As a kid, I devoured ghost stories. I watched every documentary about haunted houses and unexplained phenomena. But it wasn't enough just to learn about these places. I needed to experience them for myself. My journey into the heart of darkness began with haunted schools. These places, once filled with the laughter and energy of youth, now echoed with the silence of forgotten memories and the lingering presence of those who never left. Each school held its own unique darkness, its own chilling tales, its own cast of unseen residents. I've investigated countless haunted locations over the years, but the schools stay with me. The raw emotion trapped within their walls, the sense of innocence lost, the lingering echoes of childhood fears. It's a potent cocktail of paranormal energy. These weren't just investigations for me. They were personal journeys. My first encounter with a truly haunted school was at Franklin High. Built in 1912, the school had seen its share of tragedy over the decades. Students had died in accidents, teachers had passed away unexpectedly. Local legend claimed their spirits remained, unable to move on. The building itself was a testament to time and neglect. Peeling paint, creaking floorboards, and an oppressive silence hung in the air. The air was thick with a palpable sense of sadness, a weight that settled on my chest the moment I stepped inside. We started our investigation in the old auditorium. It was here that a beloved drama teacher, Miss Eleanor Vance, had suffered a fatal heart attack during a rehearsal. Her presence, they said, was still felt. The air grew colder as we set up our equipment. EMF meters flickered to life. And then, we heard it. A faint humming, like a choir warming up, coming from the empty stage. We moved through the school, drawn by cold spots and unexplained noises. In the library, books flew off shelves, seemingly of their own accord. In the gymnasium, basketballs bounced erratically, as if moved by unseen hands. But it was back in the auditorium that we experienced the most unsettling event of the night. As we were wrapping up our investigation, I felt a cold breath on the back of my neck. Turning quickly, I saw a fleeting shadow retreat into the wings of the stage. It was tall and slender, with long flowing hair. Could it have been Miss Vance? We'll never know for sure. But the experience left an indelible mark on me. It was at Franklin High that I truly understood the power of these places. The energy, the emotions, the residual hauntings. It was all real, and I was hooked. I knew then that I wouldn't rest until I had explored every dark corner of every haunted school in America. Blackwood Academy, an imposing structure of weathered brick and broken windows, stood on the outskirts of a ghost town. Once a bustling mining community, Blackwood had been abandoned after a devastating mine collapse that claimed the lives of dozens of men and boys. The academy, built to educate the miners' children, now stood as a grim reminder of the tragedy. Locals whispered of the children who perished in the collapse, their spirits forever bound to the school grounds. They spoke of ghostly figures seen wandering the halls, their cries echoing through the empty classrooms. As we approached the academy, a wave of oppressive energy washed over us. The air grew heavy, charged with an almost palpable sense of sorrow and despair. The energy inside the school was even more intense. The air was thick with dust and the stench of decay. The silence was broken only by the creaking of the building and the distant sound of wind whistling through the broken windows. We set up our equipment in the old gymnasium, where, according to legend, the miners' children. Section 5. When the spirits came alive at Blackwood. The temperature plummeted as soon as we started our EVP session. We asked questions into the darkness, our voices echoing in the vast emptiness. At first, there was only silence, then a faint whisper, barely audible above the static of the recorder. "Help us." The hair on the back of my neck stood on end. We continued our questions, our voices tight with anticipation. The responses became clearer, more insistent. "We're trapped. Don't leave us." The energy in the room was building, becoming almost unbearable. Then the basketballs began to move. Slowly at first, then bouncing erratically across the floor as if being dribbled by unseen hands. The sound was deafening in the silence of the gymnasium. We were Section 6. The Unseen Residents of St. Simeon's Orphanage. Our investigation of St. Simeon's Orphanage proved to be the most harrowing experience of my paranormal career. Built in the late 1800s, the orphanage had a dark and troubled history. Rumors of abuse, neglect, and even murder lingered like a shroud over the decaying building. Former residents, now adults, told stories of cold spots, disembodied voices, and shadowy figures lurking in the hallways. They spoke of a feeling of being watched, of unseen hands tugging at their clothes, of whispers calling their names in the dead of night. As we stepped inside the orphanage, the weight of its tragic past was palpable. The air was thick with the stench of mildew and decay, and a heavy silence hung over everything. The orphanage had been abandoned for decades, left to rot and crumble in on itself. The walls were lined with peeling paint, revealing layers of grime and neglect. The floors were littered with debris, and the air was thick with dust. Section 7. A Night of Terror at St. Simeon's. We set up our base camp in what was once the main dormitory. The room was vast and eerily empty, the only remaining furniture a few rusted bed frames and a solitary rocking chair that swayed gently back and forth as if pushed by an unseen hand. As darkness fell, the energy in the orphanage intensified. We began to hear the unmistakable sounds of children laughing and playing, their ghostly giggles echoing through the empty halls. EMF meters spiked, and our cameras captured unexplained orbs of light darting through the darkness. Then the attacks began. I felt a sharp scratch on my arm, followed by an intense feeling of dread. Other members of my team reported similar experiences, being touched, pushed, and even held down by unseen forces. The energy in the orphanage had become oppressive, suffocating. We were in over our heads, facing something darker and more sinister than we could have ever imagined. These are just a few of the many haunted schools I've investigated. Each location held its own unique terrors, its own collection of chilling encounters. At Willow Creek Elementary, we encountered the spirit of a young boy who had drowned in the school's swimming pool. His laughter echoed through the empty halls, and we captured footage of his ghostly form playing near the water's edge. At Crestwood High, we were tormented by the ghost of a former janitor who had been murdered in the boiler room. He threw tools, slammed doors, and whispered threats in our ears. And at St. Michael's School for Girls, we encountered the spirits of several nuns who had perished in a fire. They appeared as shadowy figures, their eyes glowing in the darkness. Each encounter, no matter how terrifying, only fueled my desire to understand the forces at play in these haunted locations. I was drawn deeper into the darkness, compelled to confront the unknown and unravel the mysteries of the afterlife. Looking back on my years of investigating haunted schools, I'm struck by the raw emotion that permeates these places. The echoes of laughter and joy, the lingering sadness of lost innocence, the sheer terror of those who suffered within their walls. It all combines to create a potent cocktail of paranormal energy. These investigations were more than just ghost hunts for me. They were journeys into the heart of human experience, explorations of the thin veil that separates the living from the dead. I've witnessed things that defy explanation, encountered entities that challenge my understanding of reality. These experiences have shaken me to my core, forcing me to confront my own mortality and question everything I thought I knew about the world. But they've also opened my eyes to a realm beyond our comprehension, a realm where the impossible becomes possible, where the boundaries of life and death blur. I've learned that the spirits who linger in these haunted schools are not there to harm us. They're trapped, unable to move on. Their energy bound to the physical world by unfinished business, unresolved emotions. My journey into the heart of darkness is far from over. There are countless haunted schools yet to be explored, countless stories waiting to be told. I will continue to seek out these places, to confront the unknown, and to share my experiences with the world. For in the darkness I found a strange kind of light, a light that illuminates the hidden corners of our existence and reminds us that we are but a small part of something much greater than ourselves. A realm where anything is possible and the veil between our world and the next is thin indeed.